An outbreak of plague in the African nation of Madagascar threatens to spread nationwide. Las Vegas police search for a motive for the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history. And a Nigerian-American doctor who discovered chronic traumatic encephalopathy in American football players shares his story. Africa 54 starts right now.
Well, good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. And now, an outbreak of plague in remote parts of Madagascar is puzzling in investigators. The World Health Organization says the disease on the African island nation, has killed 20 people in the space of a month, with another 84 being infected. The UN Health Agency says the situation could worsen because the season for plague, which is endemic in Madagascar, has only just begun and runs until April. A WHO spokesman told reporters in Switzerland that areas affected include the capital, Antananarivo, and the port cities of Mahajanga and Toamasina. Plague is mainly spread by flea-carrying rats. Humans bitten by an infected flea usually develop a bubonic form of plague, which swells lymph nodes and can be treated with antibiotics. But the more dangerous pneumonic form invades the lungs and can kill a person within 24 hours if not treated. Plague generally thrives in places with poor sanitary conditions and health services. Now, United States authorities could not identify any clues on what motivated suspected shooter Stephen Paddock to go on a shooting spree in Las Vegas and massacre 59 people while leaving nearly 600 wounded. The suspect's brothers say the family is as in shock as everyone else. President Donald Trump has called Sunday night shooting an act of pure evil. He plans to visit Las Vegas on Wednesday. We get more from viewers Laditza Hoke.
The shooter made a hole in the window of his hotel room and opened fire on the crowded concert venue. Witnesses say when they first heard the shots, they thought they came from firecrackers. When they realized it was gunfire, people panicked.
Like some were falling and some were screaming and yelling.
We ran and we ran. And I still wasn't even sure if it was actually bullets. People just started dropping around us.
The shooting in Las Vegas is the worst mass shooting by a single gunman in recent U.S. history. President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, accompanied by their wives, held a moment of silence Monday afternoon on the White House South Lawn in honor of the victims. The president ordered U.S. flags to half-staff. Among those killed was an off-duty police officer who was helping people escape or find cover. In the aftermath, people lined up to donate blood to the wounded. The White House press secretary praised the response of American people to the Las Vegas attack.
The memory of those who displayed the ultimate expression of love in the midst of an unimaginable act of hate will never fade. Their examples will serve as an eternal reminder that the American spirit cannot and will not ever be broken.
Islamic State claimed the attack through its news agency, saying the shooter had recently converted to Islam, but investigators could not find any links between the suspect and any kind of group.
This is an individual who was described as a lone wolf. I don't know how it could have been prevented.
No connection with an international terrorist group.
His family described him as a wealthy man who loved to gamble and sent lavish boxes of cookies to his mother in Florida. He had no criminal record.
I mean, my brother did this. This is like it was done, like he shot us. I mean, if he'd have killed my kids, I couldn't be more dumbfounded.
The latest U.S. shooting incident is raising new discussions on what can be done to prevent massacres without politicizing them. Experts say that checking bags at concert venues can ensure no one brings a gun inside, but the Las Vegas suspect was shooting from a hotel with a good view of the crowd.
This is a different dynamic. There's nothing the venue that could have done to stop someone from getting a hotel room with an overlook like that. This is the worst possible scenario.
The gunman, identified as Stephen Craig Paddock, a 64-year-old retiree from Mesquite, Nevada, had close to 20 firearms with him, including rifles. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Now for the latest developments, let's go to VOA's Elizabeth Lee, who's standing by live via Skype in Las Vegas. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi there.
Yeah. Now, what is the latest on the possible motive of the shooter?
And that is the biggest mystery of all. Police are still looking into this person's past. And according to his brother, he's been telling the media, this is the brother of the gunman, that he does not have any political or religious affiliations, no smoking gun, so to speak, according to investigators, of why he could have done this, what the motive is. What we do know is that he had an arsenal of weapons and firearms, 23 at the hotel, 10 suitcases were brought into the hotel room. And in his home, 18 to 19 more firearms with ammunition and explosives. So they're still trying to dig into this person's history, looking at his computer files to try to find out exactly what his motivation is. But at this point, it is still a mystery.
Indeed, mind-boggling. Now, give us some updates on how the city is dealing with the task of identifying the hundreds of victims of that attack.
Well, people are still looking for loved ones that they haven't heard from since the concert. There's a hotline that people are calling in. These are people who could still be injured at the hospital. So people are still looking for loved ones. And even on the local news, they're putting up names and photographs to try to find people. So we are still in recovery period, but the community has really come together. I'm currently at a blood bank, and this is day 2, and I'll flip the camera around so you can take a look at just the line is still, the blood bank just opened about half an hour ago, and just take a look at this crowd. This is a crowd that's outside, standing in line, wrapped around the building, just for a moment to get in. I spoke to one of the members from the community here earlier. She said she tried to get into a blood bank yesterday and was turned away because the need, there's just so many people who want to help, doing anything they can to help, and others are donating it financially to try to help the families of victims.
Indeed, a city standing together. Very quickly, to what extent has this generated the debate of gun control, particularly there?
Yeah. Now, while the national politicians are talking about gun control, I asked about the local residents what they think, and they said it's still too early to talk politics, to talk gun control. They're still in a period of mourning their loss, still trying to come to grips with what happened just 2 days ago. So they say it's too early to talk about this at this point. They just want to focus on giving each other support. And they said gun control is something they can talk about next week, but it's too soon right now.
Elizabeth, thank you for being there for us. Excellent reporting. Viewers, Elizabeth Lee reporting live via Skype from Las Vegas. Now, grenades were thrown overnight at the homes of 2 Ugandan legislators opposed to scrapping the presidential age limit to extend President Yoweri Museveni's more than 31 years in power. A police spokesman confirmed that grenades were targeted at the homes of Robert Chaluyangi and fellow legislator Alan Sewanyana, but dismissed as absurd the idea that the attacks were politically motivated. Both legislators were among MPs forcefully ejected from the parliament chamber last week by Ugandan special forces. During the fighting, microphone stands were used as crude weapons, chairs were thrown, and bench seats were damaged. Now, the fighting in the chamber pitted legislators opposed to extending Museveni's rule against special forces and legislators favoring the extension. At least 5 lawmakers were hospitalized for injuries sustained as they were dragged out of the chamber by plainclothes security guards that opposition MP said were special forces soldiers. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Also, find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, a Nigerian-American doctor who discovered unique degenerative brain injuries in American football players shares his story. Stay with us.
This is a country that I chose to become a citizen. I didn't have to become a citizen. I chose to become a citizen.
I feel like America gave me an opportunity to pursue my passion as an artist.
I really believe that clean eating is a way to a more successful life, or a happier life, if you want to put it that way.
One of the things that helps me wake up every morning is doing better, being better.
We grew up poor, and so I'm always focused on helping the working class be able to have a more comfortable lifestyle.
I'm passionate about doing justice every day. I oftentimes say that justice is a verb, not a noun. You know, I believe in action and moving the ball forward.
Well, it's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lina Madu, who had an interesting discussion with a renowned doctor on brain injuries. Lina.
Well, American football season is in full swing here in the United States. Football is at the heart of American sports culture. Despite its popularity, football players are susceptible to concussions. More than 10 years ago, Dr. Bennett Omalu discovered chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a neurodegenerative disease found in people who have had multiple head injuries, while conducting the autopsy of NFL Hall of Famer Mike Webster. In an exclusive interview, he discusses his journey to the breakthrough discovery.
I wish I never met Mike Webster, because my life after that case would never be the same. That case began on a cold, rainy Saturday morning in September up in the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, in a city called Pittsburgh. I was the most junior pathologist. I had just completed my training as a neuropathologist 3 months earlier. Everybody was talking about this great American football player who had just died. But they were talking about him in very derogatory ways. I was offended by what I heard, because as a forensic pathologist, my duty is to speak for the dead, to give voice to the voiceless. So I paid closer attention, and I discovered that this individual played this game I saw growing up in Nigeria on satellite TV every now and then. People dressed up like extraterrestrials running around a field with big head, broad padded shoulders, and tiny legs. But I noticed as a child they would run into each other intentionally and slam violently into one another. I paid closer attention. I said, well, if this guy played this game over many years, that meant he must have sustained thousands of blows to his head. But at serendipity would have it, accidental discovery. When I got to work, guess who was on my autopsy table?
Mike Webster.
So when I realized it was him, that moment was an amalgamation of my entire life. I struggled with depression. He had depression. And another dimension to it is that through practicing forensic pathology and examining dead people, I discovered faith. I practiced my faith in my science and my science in my faith. And I had no reason to do an autopsy on Mike Webster. We knew why he died. He had a massive heart attack. But guess what? The Spirit led me to do an autopsy on him. When I opened up his skull, I was expecting his brain to be mangled and diseased. His brain appeared normal. Examining his brain wasn't necessary, or performing special analysis of the brain was unnecessary. So I went to my boss. He's a very intelligent man, Dr. Cyril Wecht. He allowed me to examine it as long as I paid for the test. I said, sure. At some point, I actually took the brain home, and I examined it on my kitchen table, on my dining table. Luckily, I wasn't married. I didn't have any children.
What were you looking for?
I did not know. All I knew was there was something wrong.
There was something wrong. So let's fast forward when you found what was wrong.
When I remember that day, abnormal changes in his brain. I actually did not believe it. I had to go back to the brain to make sure it was his brain, and I submitted another set of slides. just to confirm. So when the second set of slides came back and I saw the same thing, I was afraid that I was being delusional. Remember, I was suffering from depression. So I decided to take the slides to 2 different doctors to confirm what I was seeing. So the 2 doctors I showed the slides to confirmed. They said, yes, this is something new. He's not a boxer, so it cannot be dementia pugilistic. Then what is it? So I went back to the library for almost 6 months. I searched the literature back to the time of Hippocrates. It had never been reported. But I recognized this was an occupational disease, and it was all a matter of time it would end up in the court of law. That what I had to do was find more brains of football players, but in the interim, I had to give it a name. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy doesn't really mean anything. All it simply means is a bad brain associated with trauma. Because I was afraid I could be wrong. So if down the road somebody proved me wrong, I would have wiggle room to exit and say, oh, after all, it doesn't mean anything. Then it sounded intellectually sophisticated, because if it was intellectually sophisticated, people would be more likely to use it, because it will give people some utility, and people will be more likely to repeat it. And then it had a good acronym for those who cannot say, they can always fall back to CTE. So we published the paper.
What were you thinking when you came up with this result? Did you realize what a big deal this was, given the big deal that football was?
I was a total ignoramus of football, American football. I did not know what a quarterback was. I did not know what a touchdown was. I did not even know what the NFL stood for. I was naive. But the humanity of my science and the humanity of my faith made me believe that this was a good thing. Guess what? It was not.
We saw some reflection in the movie Concoction, played by Will Smith.
I am the wrong person to have discovered this.
If you don't speak for them, who will?
On Thursday, in part 2 of my exclusive interview with Dr. Bennett Omalu, he elaborates on concussions in contact sports, including American football, and how to protect children. He also discusses his new book, Truth Does Not Have a Side. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @Lenore. Back to you, Vincent.
A powerful interview there. Thanks a lot, Lenore. I'll be sure to watch Lenore Madu's health report every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa 54. Well, a computer programmer from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Patricia Ngoy, spent 6 weeks of Washington Mandela Fellowship interning with the Base Ventures, a venture capital firm based in Berkeley, California. We caught up with her there to see what she has learned and what lessons from the world of venture capital she was planning to implement in her career in coding and programming.
I spent a lot of months after my graduation refusing jobs because they all wanted me to be a salesperson. And I didn't want to be a salesperson. I was like, I like technical things, and I like network, so I like the cables, touching the cables. I still want to have lipsticks on, and I still want to work with cables. I was researching about opportunities to do it like an entrepreneur by myself and not have to like be sent in the commercial field. And then I came across the Yali network and applied. And at the time, I was giving some computer classes to some few girls in my mom's backyard. And that's how actually one day I realized I can actually do this. Like, I love doing this, I love teaching this. I want to bring more girls into the technical and technology fields. I'm Patricia Ngoy. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm one of the Mandela Fellowships, and I'm doing my professional development experience in Berkeley in a venture capital firm that's called Base Venture, and I like the experience. In Base Venture, I've been focusing on connecting myself with VCs, with other venture capitals, for my incubator. The greatest things I've learned here during my professional development experience is that it's good to like IT and everything that is technical, but you still need to have a certain background in finance if you want to have a business. So I had this great idea of having a tech incubator for women, and in my head I was like, okay, I can teach this, I can teach that, and I can bring a couple of women that can teach this, can teach that, but teaching is not making the business. The greatest challenge of women to advance in entrepreneurship is the mindset. Everything begins with the mind. So our society has made women think or women feel that they are consumers, they are not makers. Most of the applications that are used today across the world, it's used by women, but those women, they don't even care about how it's made. They are waiting for someone to build the solution. But today, with the evolution of mobile use, technology is bringing so many opportunities, and women should grab those opportunities because the world is not going backward, it's going forward, and women need to catch up on that. Close your eyes and imagine Mark Zuckerberg in a female version. They're not going to imagine any woman in lipstick or nice skirt or in yellow. Definitely not. They're going to imagine a nerdy girl with jeans and a t-shirt. This is also something that we need to work with women. They need to understand that you can still look pretty. You can still wear lipstick and still get and be successful in technology and have a business driven by technology. When I go back home, I think one of the things that's gonna challenge me is the fact that not much people are working on helping women get into technology. And there are so many movements here in the United States that are doing it, and it's just amazing the work they're doing. But at the same time, it's one of the things that's gonna carry me on despite the culture shock when I go back home, because I've seen here that people did it, and if they can do it, we can also do it back home.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A well-known Kenyan artist exhibits invocations of the African Museum of Art here in Washington. We'll be right back.
إنشاء ميثاق وطني. ميثاق وطني يجرم المساس لكتب الدين. بفضل الله الآن
in view of the rapid frequency in the occurrence of
My name's Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon Beat. That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my beat.
A multimedia visual artist from Kenya known as Chuchu has 2 videos on exhibit at the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art in Washington, D.C. VOA's Caroline Turner has this review.
Jim Choo Choo's work has been lauded as a hallucinatory cry of independence, as formally rigorous in its sounds and rhythms as it is beautiful. Invocations opened recently at Washington's Smithsonian National Museum of African Art. 2 videos are featured, The Severance of Ties and Invocation Release. The exhibit was curated by Karen Milbourne.
But Jim is exciting. I mean, he really embodies, I think, what the 21st century and the future is going to be about. Right now, he's in the middle of making a documentary film. He's also made art films, so he's a director, he's a musician, he's a photographer, he's a video art maker. He's so talented across so many platforms.
The works are politically charged, visually seductive, and technically sophisticated. They reflect the changing times and a tribute to the vision of their multifaceted creator. The videos follow initiation rituals. In The Severance of Ties, we see the artist's body, his torso bare as he turns and lets the streamers in his hair catch the wind, as Choo Choo's form spins and morphs. Viewers are drawn into an entrancing montage of shifting images depicting a state of being in between who he was and the person he will become.
The imagery seems to draw on Masai Ilmuran, the warriors of the Maasai people of Kenya and Tanzania. He's going to sort of go through that, I'm no longer a child, I'm no longer an adult, I am becoming, and then he lets go of that past.
In Invocation Release, the artist's figure unfolds, exhales vapor, and multiplies. He releases the past to become part of a new collective acceptance of who he is now and for the future. Surrounded by Choo Choo's pulsing and evocative imagery, viewers are invited to contemplate the separations and releases that shape our individual and community identities.
And so he takes that idea of sort of going through a ritual and letting go of your past to define who you're going to be in the present and for the future.
The multidisciplinary artist's work reflects his gay LGBTQ lifestyle in Nairobi.
His experience of being openly gay in Nairobi is his way of sort of coming out and saying, I have severed those expectations that would say that this is wrong, and I've released them, and now I am this dynamic individual who is performing on multiple continents, whose TV show is watched around the world, and that's who he is defining himself as now.
Choo Choo is active in promoting Nairobi as an art center. His videos will be at Washington's Smithsonian Museum of African Art through June of 2018. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa, and that's between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A fly is an insect with wings. They are very small and hard to notice. But why would a person want to be a fly on the wall? Let's listen.
Fly on the wall.
My roommate was breaking up with her boyfriend.
Oh no, that's too bad. Were they talking really loudly?